Hi guys, welcome back to Hear Me Out. I'm E,
I'm D.
and today we're going to talk about our girl Britney Spears. So, we have given you guys enough time to listen to the audiobook. The book is out.
The book is out, yeah.
The book is out.
To read the book.
To read the book. Take notes. Compare and contrast with what we're about to say. And I'm talking about The Woman in Me, narrated by Michelle Williams. And Britney is just basically spilling all her life stories, her tea, her truth. Yeah. And the internet has some thoughts. We have some thoughts. We're hurting. We're pissed.
Yeah.
We want to start a revolution. It's a whole thing. So we're going to recap basically, what's in the book and how we feel.
Yeah. Okay. So real quick, this is something that I read from the BBC when I was kind of going through my notes and everything, because I did listen to the audiobook. So from the BBC, Britney Spears knows what it's like to feel trapped, first by poverty, then by fame, and then by her family. She has been subject to scrutiny and ridicule throughout her life. As a teenager, journalists repeatedly asked her questions about her breasts and her sex life. As an adult, she was imprisoned under a conservatorship that stripped her of some of the most basic human rights. For 13 years, she could not see her two sons without approval. Her driving license was confiscated. She could not choose her meals and was forbidden from drinking tea or coffee. When she wanted to have a contraceptive intrauterine device, which is an IUD, removed, her request was denied. The court-imposed order, overseen by her father, was lifted 2 years ago when a judge ruled Spears could make her own decisions again. Mm-hmm. So, because of this, because the conservatorship was finally over, Britney was able to write this memoir. And it was a lot. Very first thing that she kind of started off with was that her father was an alcoholic. So apparently her father had a rough childhood, a very difficult father, who was very demanding, who was in essence abusive. But as a grandfather, he was amazing. And yet still, of course, her father grew up to be, all these kind of bad things, given the example that he had. Her mom was actually going to divorce him when her older brother was really young. So this was before Britney was even born. But it was actually his parents that convinced her to stay with him. And then they ended up having Britney. Britney, from a young age, was always trying to entertain people. She loved, people's attention that they would give to her. And she grew up really close to her mother and her brother. And this was, of course, before her little sister, Jamie Lynn, was born. When Britney Spears got the Mickey Mouse Club gig, her mom was with her and stayed with her during filming. This was, of course, all taking place in Orlando. Her family was originally from Louisiana. And then she mentioned, through all of this, how, when she first initially tried out for Mickey Mouse Club, I believe she was around 11 years old. But the people around the show told her and her mom that she was basically too young or didn't have enough experience. So they said that to her, and she mentioned how they said that to Christina Aguilera as well, and how basically they encouraged her to reach out to, I believe it might have been an agent in New York who could kind of help her to get some experience. And that's how she ended up doing some play work, like musical plays or whatever in New York with Natalie Portman. So she kind of, has been in the industry for a very, very long time. Then she got, when she was older, 14, she got the Mickey Mouse Club gig, where, of course, she's once again with Christina Aguilera. She meets Ryan Gosling, Justin Timberlake, and, all of that. So during that time, her mom would take her for daiquiris and let her drive. All of this before she was 15. She also admitted that by 14, she was smoking and had begun having sex during that time.
What?
At 14. Yep. So we'll get to the Baby One More Time version that everybody was introduced to. But she says she was already at that point. And so she signed her first record deal at 15. By this point, she is not who, they ended up trying to paint her as, right?
Yeah.
So once she signed her deal, her mom wasn't really staying with her anymore, and they actually sent a family friend, Felicia, to look over Britney. Felicia was with Britney all the time, would, essentially take care of her, but again, that wasn't her mom. And then her record label pretty much controlled her image and kept pushing like the virginal innocent girl narrative. And while Britney was becoming famous, her family was back home enjoying her money, basically. So of course, Britney and Justin, they would, interact, and I believe they did a tour together or whatnot. That's kind of how they kind of got back together, because there was a little bit of a thing in Mickey Mouse Club, but it wasn't anything, substantial. Then when they got a little bit older, then, things became serious. And she loved him. She mentioned how she loved him tremendously. And she knew that he had cheated on her. And she said that at different points he had cheated on her. She knew about it, but she still stayed. At one point, her and Justin were actually living together. And this was like in secret because, of course, the label and all them didn't want anyone to know. And this is the house where she was given the abortion pills that she felt nearly killed her. So here's the thing. She was like, Justin did not want to take her to the hospital because they didn't want any media attention. It was Felicia who brought her the abortion pills, and she had to endure it in the bathroom, like by herself, until Justin came and was serenading her, as the headlines have pointed out. She mentioned in great detail how extremely painful it was, and how she had to basically like endure all of that just on the bathroom floor. And she really did feel like this was it. Like she just wasn't going to make it. Like that is how extensive the pain was. And Justin felt like laying down next to her, serenading her with his guitar was the solution to. So anyway, there was that whole situation. And she did also.
I don't think I was prepared for all of this. I was like, what?
Yeah. So I'm gonna break here in a second, because this is like, I think this is kind of like this whole portion that I've just discussed is I think building blocks of what we now know. So she did admit to Justin that she had actually kissed with Wade Robson. So she cheated by kissing the guy. She didn't sleep with anyone, unlike Justin. But she says that Justin
allegedly. There have been things in the media that said, I think it was like a former friend or assistant or somebody that came out that said it was more than a kiss.
Okay, sure.
I'm just saying. I'm just throwing it out there.
She said that he forgave her and they moved on together. But that once Justin started working on his solo debut album, that's when he started becoming distant with her. Eventually, he broke up with her via text message while she was on set of a music video. She kept working, but was devastated inside. And she went into a deep depression for a while after the breakup. While Justin was getting all the props and vilifying Britney, she was at home trying to avoid everyone. She wanted to tell her side of the story, but felt she would not be heard. For years, people around her sexualized and minimized her. At interviews, during meetings with execs, they mostly just stared at her boobs or didn't take her serious. So, before I get into this other next portion, let's discuss how this girl, so it was, not only did we want to give you guys time to like read it, listen to it, be able to like also not get spoiled, right? Besides everything that's in the headlines, but I needed time to process. This was a lot. Like, it was very difficult to listen to. Michelle Williams, by the way, I've mentioned in another video, amazing narration. She's like so good. But you feel the pain that Britney went through. You feel how essentially at no point did she really have a legitimate support system. And how every person that she thought loved her just took advantage of her. Like literally, it was all of that. It was constant people just taking advantage of her.
And we only stopped here. We know the rest of her life.
Yes.
People have been taking advantage of her and robbing her from opportunities, to raise her kids or, give me money, kind of Kevin Federline. You never rapped. But, I have to crack a joke.
We will get to that. But yeah, so she, she detailed how, like, once Jamie Lynn was born and everything, they gave her everything she wanted, like basically she had a house built for her mom. Everything that she could possibly do and give to them, she did. She really tried to, be like great at her job. And she, didn't want to do anything to like upset like people on set, upset producers or anything like that. Like she was always trying to make other people happy. At no point towards this part of the book, at no point is anybody really doing anything for her or making her happy. And as far as like the Justin thing, it pisses me off because I remember those interviews. I remember Crimea River when it first dropped.
Oh yeah.
I remember the way in which people really villainized her, and I hated that video. I hated that video so much because he had no right to do that to her. And at no point did she ever actually say anything about it. It's not like she came out with a statement. It's not like nothing, none of it. And he just continued. And from the sound of it, right, of course, there's, 2-3 sides to every story, his, hers, and the truth. But according to her, it's the moment that he was working on his solo album where it was like he wanted to have, a spot. He wanted to make a splash. How do you make a splash? Your first album out, having your heart crushed by America's Sweetheart and making yourself seem like this heartbroken, who then goes on to bring Sexy back years later, and it's like, oh, he's this, he's survived, he's made it through all of this stuff. No.
I mean, when that video came out, I loved it, to be honest.
Of course.
So there's always a different side to it. But, with all that, you see in the video, the shadow that looks like Britney and, oh, she really cheated. Oh, my God. I think it just didn't help. Maybe, I wasn't probably aware because I was relatively young. Yeah. But, we never really heard Britney's story, right. Of course, like her side. We always heard the Justin side, that she's a cheater. Oh, she was with Colin Farrell. She did this with this other guy. I think, what was it, the interview with Diane Sawyer? Yes. Like, she just took it, Yeah. So, by taking it, it's like, almost like you're accepting fault. Right. So Justin got away with it, for a long, long time. Now, in hindsight, I'm like, damn, Elders, you needed to read a little more. You should have been on Britney's side. That was a good song.
I was always on Team Britney.
I am Team Britney, but I didn't know, how deep all this was, you know? And especially, I think, I don't know, why did record labels have this whole, let's be a virgin? It was with her, Christina Aguilera, Jessica Simpson.
Because think about it. This was
the boy
era.
bands, the what was it? The Virgin Ring. What was it? The ring?
That was with the Joneses, so.
But still, they're still were trying to.
Yes, but that was that era. That was that whole thing with the boy bands and the pop starlets. It was a whole like, oh, everybody, it's kids. Yeah. Yes, because you had the fan base was kids. And this is, of course, before social media. This is before streaming services, Spotify, Apple Music, none of that. People were buying legit physical albums. And who was buying them? These young kids. Yeah.
That makes sense. And plus, they were in the Mickey Mouse Club, kids growing into teenagers, young adults. So, okay, that makes sense.
Meanwhile, whole time, clearly her and Justin were doing it, and he had no problem.
Crazy. So, did she say if that was her first, like at 14?
No, he wasn't her first. It was, I think, a boy from school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. but yeah, no, so, and that was the other thing too that I think stuck out to me was that, mind you,
Mm-hmm.
people from the South do things a little bit different. Drinking at 14 is not unheard of. Driving at 14 is not unheard of. But still, she was a kid.
Yeah.
And her mom caught her smoking at 14. And something happened. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it distracted her to the point where she didn't even like do anything about the fact that she'd caught Britney smoking. And so what happened?
But it was the parents at the time. I feel like they get so starstruck, and they see all this cash coming in because we saw it with Drew Barrymore.
Yeah.
At a very young age, she developed all these habits.
Yeah, these issues.
And she was at, what was it, Studio
54.
She was at Studio 54 at like age 10,
right,
or whatever it was, with her mom, relatively young. She wasn't even a preteen. She was drinking the drugs. So just knowing that Britney went through something like that too, it's just crazy to me that these parents care about all these other things.
Right. Well, they're a family that really like didn't have much. That was another thing that she pointed out. Like, her dad had modest income. Her mom, I think she did come from a little bit of money. She actually mentioned how her grandmother, I believe it was her grandmother, was British.
Mm-hmm.
So, there was some affluency, I think, on her mom's side. But, with her actual family, her parents and all that, they did go through hard times. They went through, times where there was no money or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, when you don't have it and you need it, you do what you gotta do to get it. But then when you have it, you just do whatever you can to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, it's like, oh, she's our cash cow right now,
Mm-hmm.
like let's make this happen.
Let her do what she wants to do and keep her happy, kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe. Because it wasn't so much about, like, it didn't sound as though they were, trying to control her so much then, because at the time, who was controlling her? The studios, not the studios, the record labels, So let's continue with the next part, which, interesting, you mentioned. She did actually end up dating briefly Colin Farrell. And although it was just for the physical aspect of it, for a moment she wondered if it could be more. This, of course, was just her depression talking, because I think she just wanted to find some sort of a connection with anybody. But eventually she was so depressed about Justin that she went to Vegas with friends to try to have fun, and that's where she got drunk and married her first husband. So that was the 54-hour, I believe, marriage with Jason something. Alexander.
Yeah.
And that was, again, just all part of what she's already, going through, right? And so then it was that incident where it seems like her family wanted to start taking control of her. They forced her to get an annulment and treated her like a POS for essentially embarrassing them. And she, was not really all that close anymore to her mother at this point, or her brother. And she also felt a little jealous of Jamie Lynn, her little sister, because she got to have the childhood Britney never had. She talked about how much she loved her little sister and would do anything for her, and they would all spoil her. But this in turn created a mean Jamie Lynn who was ungrateful and treated their mother badly. By the time Jamie Lynn got her TV show, Britney was wishing she could have done that herself, because TV was easier than the music industry. By the time that she met Kevin Federline and they began dating, she claims she didn't know that he was already a father or that he had another baby on the way. So this, of course, if you guys all remember, was a thing back then, because his baby mama claims that Britney did know, and therefore was a part of this whole, breaking up of the family.
Yeah.
So she really claims, right, that she did not know. She was not aware of any of this. But she fell for him because he brought her a sense of protection and love. that she hadn't felt from anyone else. So things between them, were fine for some time. But once she got pregnant with their second baby and Kevin started his rap career, he became distant. And he would spend long periods of time away from her recording. Once he got a small taste of fame, he would refuse to see her when she'd go up to the studio to visit him. And she would go with her kids in tow, and he would refuse to see her.
That's crazy because it's almost like Justin is replaying again. As soon as he started a studio album, his solo album, he ghosted her.
Yeah.
Broke up with him now.
Here we are again. Yeah. So, eventually her people told her it would be best for her to divorce him because he was going to leave her anyway. But if she filed, then she wouldn't be as embarrassed. But in doing that, it meant she'd have to pay his legal fees. Mm-hmm. And he was also going to be fighting her for custody of their sons, despite Kevin not really being around them for some time while he, quote unquote, recorded. Britney talked about how she'd been pregnant for 2 years straight with her babies and how during that time she admits to being mean. And this is a story actually that I recently read about. So as I mentioned, Jamie Lynn had a TV show on Nickelodeon. So one of the actresses on the show recently came out. I think it was a podcast interview or something like that. And she mentioned how Jamie Lynn used to bully her. And that when she told her mother, the girl, because of course they're all underage, that she wanted to get off the show, the mom was trying to make it happen for her to get off the show. And they tricked her. They tricked the girl into supposedly going to meet with one of the directors or something like that. But instead, she walked in to Britney Spears and Jamie Lynn in a dressing room. And Britney Spears basically like berating her and going off on her as far as like, why are you bullying my sister? Like Jamie Lynn made her believe that it was the other way around. And so Britney mentions this, how she, I believe, was pregnant with her second baby maybe at this point. And she, again, says how she was pretty mean. And she's like, I said some things to this young actress, and I now know that, it was actually the opposite, and I apologize to her. So, again, she had already gone through all these different things by this point. And then, once her marriage broke apart and the custody issue started, she was more sad and angry. And when Kevin would have the kids, he'd keep them for weeks and wouldn't let Britney see them. So it's like, it wasn't even like a fair thing. So, of course, this added to her depression, which she would learn years later that this was that she was suffering, from postpartum depression. She reveals that the reason she was taken to rehab the first time was because her family convinced her that if she did, she'd be able to see her sons. This was a tactic that helped them control her later on during the conservatorship as well. So, now, before we get into this next part, what do we think? As far as like everything that's happened up until this point, because it's a lot. Like the girl has been through like a lot.
I think Kevin Federline is a shitty human being, unfiltered. Like, how can you do? I don't even know if they were getting along or not, but just denying your sons to see their mom, I think is so crappy. And I don't know if he was in search of obviously he got the money. Right. Whatever. Yeah. But if he wanted to be a little more amicable, I'm sure Britney would have given her whole life savings at this point just to hang out with her kids. Like, hey, have my fortune, give me my kids, or let me see them more. Like, what's that quote with you get more bees with honey?
With honey,
kind of thing. I don't know why he had to be such an ass. He was getting everything that he wanted.
I don't know. Honestly, something seems off, in that whole thing, because it just seems so cruel. Like,
out of nowhere.
Right. And so it's like, was this the plan all along, Because, I think that maybe...
I think he preyed on her.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. And I think that, like, if he didn't have the kids most of the time, then that means less money for him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, okay, yeah, let's continue to make Britney look crazy if it means that I get to have the kids more time, that means I get to have more money. Because no matter what, conservatorship or not,
Yeah.
child support is going to trump, I think, just about everything.
Yeah,
So,
but he's a no-name rapper making -$3. Britney was going to give him alimony and child support regardless because she's
Yeah.
Britney Spears with hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
He didn't need to be cool like that.
No.
Or at least I don't, of course we don't know what happened in closed doors, but as far as we know, Britney didn't cheat. She didn't do anything to, I guess upset him or, embarrass him or, there wasn't like a big scandal about it. All we know is he was like a dancer.
Yeah.
They got married. They were together for a little bit. She had kids. They divorced. That's the end of that. Like, why did he need to do that to her? But why did he need to do that to his kids?
Yeah. Ultimately,
that's the selfish part of it all.
Yeah, I think that's something that, like, obviously Britney was suffering,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no telling the amount of damage he did to his sons with all of that.
Yeah.
Keeping them from their mom. And so yeah, like reading or listening to the audiobook, when I got to that part, it was just like, these men that have been in her life have literally just used her, taken advantage of her. And once they've gotten whatever it is that they needed or wanted from her, then they've discarded her because they've treated her like trash. Like, very much so the way that her family did. There's something else that, I'll discuss here in a second, but I mean, even her father growing up, like, basically never made her feel like she was good enough, So it's a lot. And again, she had been pregnant for pretty much 2 years straight.
Mm-hmm.
After having had a very difficult couple of years prior to that, having that abortion that she didn't want to have, losing the love of her life at that time in a nasty way, and then everything, all the subsequent backlash that followed, to then now be on this side of things. Which leads us to the 2007 incident.
Wait,
So,
I just want to say that it seems to be like a pattern with all these, like, uber famous, iconic, the goats of music or, whatever industry.
mm-hmm.
They have this like twisted or childhood or very impoverished or like very dominant parents or, mostly father figures.
Yeah.
And, these kids, they just grow up with all this pain and negativity and it just is like, it's never ending. It chases them to go out their whole life. Let's think of, like, let's say Michael Jackson. Let's think of
Drew Barrymore too. Yeah.
Well, Drew Barrymore, got her. She's doing better.
Yeah, she's doing better.
But we see like all these tragic stories, and it just makes me so sad. Like they can't find a moment of happiness,
right,
anywhere.
And that's another like thing, as far as the layers of it all is that like there was. I think it was like every time she thought she was happy, it really wasn't, like the case. And it was like something bad was just around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so again, the 2007 incident, which we all know was the whole shaving of the head and the paparazzi and all that. So that came after devastated Britney was denied access to her kids by Kevin Federline. It seems most of what happened around that time was because of Kevin keeping her boys from her and the bad press she would still get because of the picture Justin painted of her years earlier. So, also, paparazzi. That was another thing that she touched on quite a bit. The paparazzi was hounding her constantly, attacking her as well, yelling at her. Britney, do you think you're a good mother? Britney, are you a bad mother? Britney, why aren't you with your kids? Britney, why can't you see your kids? Like all these different things. Mm-hmm. So in this particular incident, the 2007 incident, a paparazzi was doing the same thing. After literally just minutes earlier, Kevin denied her access to see her kids. A paparazzi was telling her, Britney, do you think you're a good mother? Britney, why are you a bad mother? Or something along those lines. And this is when Britney broke. naturally, because any person would break when you have someone hounding you like that. And, unfortunately, this all began a downhill spiral to this next part. So her mother tricked her into going into their beach house. And that is where they tied her down to a gurney, and her father revealed that he was taking over and she was now in a conservatorship. Her mother tricked her. Her mother, who she had just spent a sleepover with a few days earlier with one of her aunts and her cousin, didn't tell her any of this. Didn't tell her dad was planning any of this. And asked her to come down to the beach house. Come be with your family. And it was all just so that her dad could tie her down and basically say, like, I'm taking over.
Yeah.
So
sometimes I think, I'm like, why didn't she have like lawyers? But these were like different times. How young was she? In like her early 20s, maybe 20s.
I want to say mid-20s, around there.
Still, I guess, finding an adult footing, so you're not thinking of all these things and how
right.
these repercussions, plus the postpartum depression, plus I think she also had like what was it, Adderall?
Yeah,
she was taking Adderall.
Yeah,
and that whole thing, the portrayal of her life and hanging out with the bad girls. Back then the Lindsay Lohan,
right,
and
Paris Hilton. Yeah.
Oh,
it was a lot.
Jeez.
So, during those 13 years of the conservative, her father controlled everything. At any point where he would notice her doing well, he'd find an excuse to send her to rehab or take things away from her. She was only allowed to have, I believe, grilled chicken for pretty much every single day of all those years. She was dating someone at one point who used to like to work out, and he would take like supplements for working out, and he would give some to her, and she would end up having more energy and being able to perform better. But her father would notice that there was a difference, and so then he would throw her back in rehab because now she's abusing these supplements. And also, thing to point out that she was very clear about. They all said I was so sick. This is what she was saying. But I was healthy enough to perform every single day.
Yeah.
And the other thing she mentioned, that in 2019, with the help of a sports entertainment doctor's company that Britney later learned was in business with her father, ran tests on her that they claim revealed she was not mentally stable, and they forced her into rehab once again. She was not allowed to leave, and they kept her from her kids once again. It wasn't until the pandemic started that she learned she could obtain her own attorney and get out of the conservatorship. Because all this time, she'd had a court-appointed attorney who didn't really help her, who pretty much answered to her father, and essentially was also, useless for her. During the conservatorship, her father controlled absolutely everything, but they had a handler as well that was kind of watching anything Britney did. Whatever Britney had going on, that person was there. Britney could not make a move. Her father knew her bowel movements, literally. He knew whenever she would need to go to the bathroom. And they would have someone outside the bathroom at all times. When Britney would start to date someone, prior to going on the first date, they would force her to disclose her entire sexual history to the person she was going to go on a date with. Britney would ask to make different arrangements to her songs when she was doing the Las Vegas residency or any tours so that, she could make things a little bit more modern. They would deny her. She couldn't do any remixes. She couldn't do anything different to any of her music. She wasn't allowed to really do anything that would in any way, shape, or form make her be stronger or feel better or anything like that. At one point, her father, not long after the conservatorship, pretty much sat her down and said, "I'm Britney Spears." And that is what it was. She was his puppet. And he did not, he did not allow a lot of things. And basically, he was paying himself a good sum of money. That sports company he was involved with at one point, prior to the conservatorship, he actually was in debt to them. That's something that Britney's current lawyer found out. So, of course, it would be lucrative for him to have his daughter in a conservatorship, where this doctor, whose company he was indebted to, would be able to say, yeah, she's not doing well. She needs to be controlled. And at no point did the courts ever change their minds about the conservatorship until, and this is the towards the end that we get to this, she was able to learn about how she could get an attorney for herself. And actually, during that last stint in rehab, there was a nurse there that she thanked because she would show her all of the Free Britney movement like stuff online. And that kind of got her, thinking, and
That nurse was a millennial.
She had to be. Yeah. So Britney thanks the Free Britney movement because she feels they truly helped to free her. She talks about her, current ex-husband as well, who is what's his name? Sam Asghari. She says he was sent from God. This is, of course, written before the announcement of their divorce earlier in the year. She was very happy with him and devastated when they lost their baby. She wants to forgive her family one day, but she said it is hard. She also said that her Instagram antics are her way of finally being able to do what she wants, when she wants, and how she wants. And essentially, she's free. She feels free, and she wants to just enjoy her life. Obviously, she cannot make up for the time she's lost, but she wants to be able to just do as she pleases. And as bad as it seems right now with the fact that she is getting a divorce from her husband, she credits him, with helping her through a lot of things and being there for her and loving her, in moments when she needed to be loved the most. It sucks that she's, that they're getting a divorce and everything, and that he probably is also another one who took advantage of her. But she went through a lot. Like, there's a lot, and it was honestly like I couldn't write everything down. It was really difficult to listen to a whole thing. It was like a lot. But her family, honestly, every time that she would mention them, I would just get annoyed because I'm like, how do you do that? These parents. I'm like, how are you not? And then also, it's like you have Jamie Lynn, and you're concerned about her, but then you don't care about Britney. That doesn't make sense, because it was always, that's another thing that she mentioned, my mom, I would call her if I wanted to visit or something, but she'd be out with Jamie Lynn and her girls, or she would be out with Jamie Lynn's daughters. And when she would go and visit the home, that she bought and paid for in Louisiana, her stuff wouldn't be there. She had a collection of dolls, and I think most of it would be gone, which now her mom has reacted to the allegations and is claiming that she has them and she'll give them to her at any point because she loves her and she wants her to know that she's loved. Nowhere in that book does it sound like her family loved her. And again, her dad, for years, basically made her feel like she wasn't good enough. Would, talk about her weight, would talk about her performances, all these things, when he was not a performer. He was not an entertainer. Yeah. So, obviously, you guys, I'm sure, have heard and read all the different headlines and, all these things that have been going on. I think at the end of the day, the main thing is just that, if she's free and she's happy, or she's finding her happiness, then that's all that matters. But I can understand why she would not want to do a whole book tour or press tour about all of this.
Yeah, people would just scrutinize every single little thing of what she could have done and why she did that, and you're crazy because of XYZ, and just keep reopening those wounds that she, a lot of people write these memoirs to heal, to say their truth and feel better. And I feel like the paparazzi, even though they're probably not as aggressive, but the internet is. Y'all are savages in headlines and in comments.
Oh man, yeah, that's true.
whatever she says or does, or, it could be misconstrued and taken away from what she's saying in the memoir.
Yeah.
Or, it's just gonna, I don't want to say set her off, but, just basically reliving, some kind of trauma.
Wow.
And being hounded and criticized and,
Yeah.
all those things.
And we know that she needs help still, but she's so traumatized that she doesn't trust going to a therapist.
I could see that.
And it's just like, ugh, like that breaks my heart because I know, we all know she would benefit from it because she has deep rooted trauma. And it's not just like one thing. It's like multiple things for many years.
All her life.
Yeah, pretty much. And so it's like, it's frustrating, like this whole thing pretty much like took away whatever sense of like, trust she could have in people, because that, I mean, yeah, like how do you trust after all of this, if like your family who are supposed to love you the most, the men you choose to live your life with who are also supposed to love you are doing this to you, like it's just
everybody just failed her. Her family, her, the men that she wanted to be, the court system, the attorneys, the medical professionals, like
except for that nurse.
Well,
millennium.
You're the real MVP here because that was probably one of the turning points, like you said, for Britney to be like, oh snap, people love me, people care. Let me do something about it. But I'm just curious to know, like, what made her reach out to an attorney then? Like, she never thought of that concept before.
I think she had, but like, mind you,
or like, how did she get the time to do it without
the pandemic?
Without the family like intervening, since they were like always being like a little helicopter parents.
Well, during the pandemic, they were not with her. They were not at her house. Yeah. From what I recall, she, I believe, was alone. Maybe like she had a handler there or something. I can't recall, but but I don't think her family was there, because she even said like this, and this is like another part that was really sad, because she also talked about how, despite her family year after year after year hurting her, doing all these things to her, she still missed them during the pandemic when they weren't with her. And so when she talks about like she wants to forgive them, it's like she really does, but at the same time, it's like it's a really difficult like thing. And I think that we've noticed that like on social media, where she'll go on a whole tirade about Jamie Lynn or about her mom or whatever, but then she'll say that she loves them and she'll do another post, and like, so it's kind of just sad because you're seeing all of this in real time, right? Like things that she's going through and how bad it really was, and how bad it really still is, because her dad is still trying to shake her down for money. Her mom at one point was still trying to shake her down for money. Like Jamie Lynn dropped a memoir, I think earlier this year as well, basically talking about Britney, so I mean, come on. It's so sad. And then it was really, guys, it was really difficult to get through that book. It took me a few days, but it was hard. It was really rough. It was very, very depressing. I mean, I'm glad she's free at least.
I'm glad you read it. Both of us. I don't think I can handle it. I probably would have stopped at chapter 1.5. I'm like, I can't take this. I think we've done a lot of research. Yeah. And, we'll have another video on Justin alone and all the things that he did to Miss Britney Spears. So just, looking at all that, I'm like, man, this girl has gone through it, It's really crazy. And of course, the mom suing her and then taking it back. But that's all just like a ploy. Yeah. A publicity stunt, or, hey, I retracted that because I love you. No, you're trying to manipulate her.
Exactly.
And I don't know.
It's just, like, and the media played such a big role in all of this as well, because the media was quick to say, oh, she's got problems. Yeah. She's crazy. She's acting crazy. Instead of, this woman just had 2 years of pregnancy straight. And her kids are being taken from her. Her deadbeat husband is leaving her. And, like, she's had to deal with all of this stuff under the spotlight since she was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Where was the grace? Like, where was any kind of, like, mercy shown towards her from anybody?
Mean, they were just attacking what they saw. I mean, that was just digging too deep, and nobody's going to work that hard. They needed the pictures, and they needed the headline. Britney is whacking the car with an umbrella. That is what's going to sell, not what is causing Britney to act this way, you know. And like you mentioned before, nobody really spoke about postpartum a lot, or mental health issues, and, you know, substance abuses, like, you know, they do now. Like, it's very open now. So I think we're a more aware society, but, you know, we can be savages too. So.
Oh, yeah.
Like, extra savage.
Like, for sure. But, you know, that was the memoir, y'all. I do recommend y'all read it or listen to it. I know it's hard, it is difficult.
Yeah.
But to get, like, a really well-rounded, like, I guess, understanding of her and what she went through and what she's just kind of lived through forever, to inform also who she is today. Mm-hmm. It's a good read. It's definitely, like, you know, good to know and have that information. But yeah, it was rough.
And then one more thought unrelated to her, but it sucks that her family also shunned her creativity.
Yeah.
Because, you know, she couldn't do any remixes. She was just basically a puppet. Britney Spears, but, you know, not really Britney Spearsing it all, you know. Yeah. So I think they also took that shine away. So, like, what does she really look forward to? Like, she didn't have an opportunity to raise her kids. She had a shitty family and relationships. And now she can't even perform the way she wants to perform and live the life that she wants to live.
Yeah. So, she did mention that, you know, music and performing, you know, that was her creative outlet. That was, like, her thing. And that she doesn't think that she could bring herself to doing that again. You know, it basically was taken from her. Mm-hmm. Like, so much was stolen from her. And this was definitely one of those things. So we're all Britney fans, but I don't think that Britney's going to be giving us any new music, y'all. And I get it.
And if she does, you better support her 1,000%. Because she deserves that.
She deserves it. Yeah. This is true. But yeah, that I think wraps it all up. That was the memoir.
Guys, let us know what you think. What were your thoughts when you heard the audiobook or read the book, or, you know, just listening to us? Like, Britney went through it. Let us know what you think, and we'll have a discussion about it. We love chatting with you guys. You know, sometimes you don't agree with me per se,
or me.
No, it's usually me. But
oh my god!
But, you know, we love the feedback. We love the different opinions, and it's just I'm ready to have a Britney conversation about this book
for sure.
But that concludes today's video. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Also, please share our video. We're trying to grow our community, so your friends could be our friends. We can all be friends. Thank you for those who have shared it. We do see the shared X number of times, but we want to see it some more. We also have social media, which Steve will tell you about.
We are on Instagram and TikTok at Hear Me Out DNE. So make sure you guys follow, like, share, comment. It's always fun interacting with y'all.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time.